So, business analyst career paths, that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. So there's really three questions that I wanted to address on this topic. And the first is, how did we all get into business analysis? And the next one is, what routes are available to BAs who want to get into business analysis now? And finally, what next for us as BA managers? Where do we go next? So how did we get into business analysis? When you ask business analysts, how did they get into business analysis? They usually start with one word, well. And what that means is that it's a long story and it's not straightforward, and everyone in business analysis used to be something else. So as Georgie mentioned, I used to manage a practice of over 100 BAs, and I've worked with hundreds of BAs over my career. And from those relationships and those discussions, I've managed to extrapolate what is, I think, the classic business analysis career path, which I'm going to reveal to you now, and hopefully you will recognise, or if not sympathise with. So if you want to be a BA, you can go to university and study pretty much anything you like. But you don't have to do that. You can also get a job. Either which way, we end up in this world of work. And in the world of work, there's two routes into business analysis. You can do this thing called being in the business, or you can be in IT, boo, IT. And again, either of those will lead you to a career as a business analyst. So just like all of you, I started making choices at the age of 15 that would eventually lead to my business analysis career path. So I chose GCSEs and A-levels and a degree that was not in any way related to business analysis. Now, because I didn't know where I was heading, I didn't know that business analysis was my goal, I wasn't making particularly well-informed or good choices about that career path. But like I say, people from all kinds of backgrounds end up in business analysis. So I think that's pretty much the classic business analysis career path. So where do BAs come from? We come from all kinds of different roles, and some of the BA manager, close colleagues of mine that I've worked with over the years, one of them was a town planner. Give us a wave, Paul. One of them has a PhD in chemistry, and another used to work in a bank, but all of them have gone on to lead very successful careers in business analysis. And I think there's something a bit chicken and egg here. Is business analysis such a broad role because the people that have come to it have come from such a broad range of backgrounds, or have people from a variety of different backgrounds found a natural home in a role that is very broad? I'm not sure the answer to that question, but I generally encourage people to use the job title business analyst rather than some of the specialist titles that exist, like requirements analyst and process analyst, because I think it better represents the breadth of the role that we do as BAs. So I've just put on here some of the roles that I know BAs that have come from these roles, but I also know BAs that have come from a really wide range of backgrounds. So one of the best BAs that I've worked with, a young BA, used to be a paramedic until very recently. And I think there's all different previous roles that can help us with the transition into business analysis, have really useful transferable skills from a wide range of roles. So have things got any better from when we all got into business analysis? My first job in IT was working for a local authority in an IT department. It was supporting social care, and social workers notoriously have some of the lowest levels of computer literacy, as we used to refer to it back then, possible. So the role that I was in, it was exactly like the IT crowd, if you've ever watched that. The only difference being that we were in the attic rather than the basement. The stairs up to our office was really more like a ladder. And I think in the 2 years that I worked there, I never saw anyone who wasn't from IT in our little IT attic. And that was my introduction into the world of IT, which led me into business analysis. But I really don't want another generation of business analysts to have to go through a whole range of jobs before they discover and fall in love with business analysis. So have things got any better? Well, unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of future BAs who are going to follow that classic BA route that led all of us into business analysis. And I think that's going to happen unless all of us as BA managers make some really conscious choices to introduce more entry-level roles and create more coherent career paths into business analysis. So there's 3 in particular that I'm going to talk about. The first is entry-level roles, graduate schemes, and also business analysis apprenticeships. So before we do that though, I want to involve you in a little exercise. So if I could just ask everybody to stand up for just a moment. There's nothing bad going to happen, I promise. So this is actually a time travelling exercise. So I want you to cast your mind back to your first job, your first proper job, and think about who was your manager, what was your working environment, what were you doing? And I want you to ask yourself the question, did you know what business analysis was at that point in time? So I want you to remain standing if at the point of doing your first job, you knew what business analysis was. Yeah. Right, that's impressive. I'm now feeling like I should have brought prizes, but it didn't occur to me that anybody would have known about business analysis back at that point in time. So just one more question, if you bear with me. So if I could ask everyone to stand up again. So this time, think about your first BA role, the first time that you had the job title of business analyst. And the question I want to ask this time is, had you had any formal training in business analysis before you had that job as a business analyst? So remain standing if you had had some kind of formal training in business analysis before you were doing the job. I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed indeed. So thank you all for that. And I think that really demonstrates the way that we all entered business analysis. And for future generations, for them to get into a business analysis, first of all, they're going to have to know what it is, unlike all of us. And then they're going to have to want to do it. Then they're going to have to understand how to train for it and what choices to make that's going to lead them into a business analysis career path. And then there needs to be opportunities available for them to apply for to actually do that role. Now, a few months ago, some of you might have been involved in Leeds Digital Festival, and I was involved in an event that was about getting young girls and young women to consider digital and technology-based roles. At the end of the event, all the students were asked to write on a post-it note something that they'd learned from attending the event. And one of the students had written simply, what a business analyst is. And for me, that was like, job done. I'm so pleased. That's only one person, and they might not go into business analysis, but at least they had an option. They understood that that was a choice available to them. So the first entry-level role that I want to talk about is what we might consider to be a junior BA. So this is people who have been working perhaps for a number of years, but not as a business analyst. They're the kind of people that you meet and you think, yeah, you've really got that attitude and aptitude that would make you a great BA in the future, but you've got absolutely no experience. They do usually have really good transferable skills. And I think the key thing for me here is about setting the expectations both of our customers of our BA service and all of our existing BAs. We have to say that we're going to make the commitment to develop BAs and not expect other organisations to give people the experience that we're looking for when we try to hire externally. I think there's a real element of professional responsibility here, because the way that we got into business analysis by doing a load of random IT jobs for 10 plus years, I don't think that's going to cut it in future. That our increased professionalism of business analysis means that we are looking for people who actually have business analysis experience at more senior levels. But that means there has to be more junior roles for people who are considering career changes and who come to business analysis later in their careers. So grad schemes, yeah, grad schemes are great, and they attract really good people. Again, good attitude and good aptitude. The concern that I have for graduate schemes, specifically in terms of business analysis, is that they tend to be quite generalist. I don't feel that often that they produce business analysts at the end of a graduate scheme. But they can, and I think all of us as BA managers need to be working with our internal graduate scheme providers, making sure that business analysis is one of the placements that are considered for graduates. And if we don't have one internally, then that's an even better position. We can tailor one, make one that works absolutely for us, and that it's going to produce the kind of talent that we want as BA managers. Now, BA apprenticeships, this is something that I'm really passionate about. For the last 3 years, I've been working as part of an employer group to develop the National Apprenticeship Standard for Business Analysis. That standard was approved just before Christmas, and now there are a small number of providers who are able to deliver the training for that accredited apprenticeship standard programme. Now, apprenticeships are really very topical at the moment. It's very timely because some of you might be aware that from the 1st of April this year, the government introduced what they refer to as the apprenticeship levy. And that means for any organisation with a pay bill of more than £3 million annually, which is probably all of our organisations, the government withholds an element of that money, and you can only get it back to spend it on apprenticeship training. That's the only thing that you can do with that money. So this is a great opportunity for us because you can spend it on either existing staff or new members of staff. It's a higher apprenticeship. That means that people have to have at least have A-levels to be, or equivalent experience to be considered. And in what you might sort of traditionally imagine as a young apprentice, you can use it for that and recruit externally. But you can also use it for your existing workforce. So thinking about roles that you might have in your organisation, like IT support desk or more admin and support roles, where there's no clear route from doing that kind of role into something like business analysis. You can use the apprenticeship levy to help support those people who we think would be good as in a BA role to get the training and support that they need. So I realise this might be a little bit difficult to see at the back. The apprenticeship's split into 2 main parts. The first is a set of technical business analysis competencies, which, as it was developed by employers, are hopefully very relevant and based on experience. So these are things like investigation techniques, business process modelling, requirements engineering and data modelling, acceptance testing, and stakeholder analysis and management. And crucially, there's also a set of underpinning business skills, interpersonal skills, things like being logical, having creative thinking skills, being able to use your own initiative, and having excellent communication skills. And all of these things we know are crucial for good business analysts. Now, I really could talk about this for the rest of my slot, but I'm not going to. So if you do want further information about the BA apprenticeships, please do speak to me afterwards. Because the final question that I wanted to address is where next for us as BA managers? And this is a question that people have talked to me a lot about over my career, with this sort of kind of perception that there is nowhere to go from being a BA manager. But I don't accept that, that defeatism. And hopefully once we've talked about it a little bit more, you'll feel that that's not the case either. So I want to start by talking about the 5 levels of management, which is a management framework developed by a chap called Jim Collins. So the framework starts off where you're a highly capable individual, to a contributing team member, competent manager, an effective leader, and finally an executive. And I'm guessing that most of us in the room are going to put ourselves in the middle here, saying that we're competent managers. And how the model defines that is by saying that we're able to organise people and resources to achieve outcomes. I think most of us would probably say that we are able to do that. And we might be thinking, well, how to move up in this model, how to become an effective leader. Because at this point, we need to be setting a clear and engaging vision and showing people how we want them to deliver on that vision. Now, I feel like executive might be a few years off for me, because I'm really not sure how I'm going to build my enduring greatness through my paradoxical blend of personal humility and what's the other one? Professional will. But don't rule me out, because I'm thinking about that. I think when we're thinking about moving up through the leadership ladder, we also need to think about the earlier steps on this ladder. We need to think about being a capable individual and what that means in different settings, and being a contributing team member and the different teams that we contribute to, not just the business analysis teams that we lead. So thinking about the other ways that you are a team member, so being a member of a leadership team or cross-organisational teams, and making sure that you're contributing and collaborating and communicating with people effectively within those teams. Because if you're not, that might hamper your ability to progress up this leadership ladder. So the BA career path within your organisation may look something like this, where we have BAs able to progress to senior or lead BAs with a small number, or perhaps only one, business analysis manager. And the question is, how do we convince our organisations that we need BA leadership roles within those organisations and that that's going to add value to our organisations? Well, I think the way to do this is to expand the BA career path in both directions, not just thinking about where do we want to go, but creating those entry-level roles that I've already spoken about, things like grad schemes and apprenticeships and entry-level roles. And I think if we do that, it will be more obvious to our organisations that this BA leadership role is necessary and that it is going to add value. So I wanted to mention at this point the GROW model, which again some of you may be aware of. And what GROW stands for is, first of all, your goal, what are you trying to get to, the reality, where are you now, what are the options, how could you get there, and then W is the way forward, a sort of concrete set of actions that are going to help move you towards that goal. There's some really great GROW coaching questions available online. Things like, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And what advice would you give a friend who was in this situation? And it can be really powerful to work through with a friend or colleague or even on your own some of these questions and help you to frame the idea of where do I want to be and how am I going to get there. But one thing that I've noticed is that BA managers often struggle with setting an appropriate goal. They don't know where to go next. They don't know in which direction that they're trying to head. So I have another model to help us figure out what that goal is so that we can use the GROW model to help us get there. So everyone likes a good 4-box grid, don't we? Especially business analysts. And this particular grid was introduced to me by a career coach called Lucy Owens very recently. And on the x-axis, we have our organisation and the ability to stay or go. And on the y-axis, we have our role, where we can stick with what we're doing or twist and try something else. And the 4 quadrants are referred to as stabilising, shifting, searching, and stretching. I'm just going to talk about these briefly. So the first one, stabilising. This is saying to yourself, I really like being a BA manager, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stay where I am. I'm actually happy in the organisation. This doesn't mean that you have to stand still. There's still opportunities to develop in your role and to develop the role, perhaps expanding the remit. So that can be a conscious choice that you make without telling yourself that I'm stuck here and there's nowhere to go and nowhere for me to develop. We also have the option to shift, which is again to say, I really like being a business analysis manager, but for whatever reason, this is not the right organisation for me anymore, and I'm going to look to try and do what I already know how to do in another organisation. Searching is about saying, I really like where I am, I'm going to stay in my organisation, but I actually want to try something else, and understanding what your options are to move within your organisation. And finally, stretching is kind of going whole hog, I'm going to do something else and I'm going to do it somewhere else. Now, when I learned about this model, it was really pertinent to me because in the last 2 months, I've changed jobs after being in the NHS for over 11 years. And what I've actually done is I've shifted. So I'm still a business analysis manager, but I've changed sectors. I'm now in higher education, and I'm loving it. It's been a really good choice for me. Now, in that same time frame, my husband was also changing jobs. He's also a BA, and he's contracted through his own company for the last 10 years. But he's gone the whole hog. He has totally changed his career path. He's now taken a permanent role within the charity sector. And for me, being able to understand this range of options, different types of options that are available to us, made me feel that there's no job that you're stuck in or you should feel like you're settling. You've always got these 4 types of options. It's about trying to understand what your options are within that. So specifically then, if we're going to twist and not be a business analysis manager anymore, what are the paths that are open to us? Well, this is based on my kind of observations and a lot of the BAs that I've known over the past few years. But a lot of you might be aware of the Business Analysis Managers Forum, which is a national forum that meets a couple of times a year, typically in London. they did a piece of work a couple of years ago which had input from over 80 BA practice leads, and I validated my thoughts against what they came up with. So the first one that I wanted to mention is about being a BA consultant or contractor, and there's lots of advantages to that, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. There's a bit of a downside for us as BA managers though, because a lot of the BA roles tend to be delivery focused roles with limited scope for development and leadership. So that's potentially a bit of a compromise for BA managers, but has lots of plus points to it as well. The next one, depending on the type of experience that you've got and the type of organisation that you work in, might be the product owner space. And I've known quite a few BAs that have moved very effectively into this space and are really enjoying it. I think it's a very similar skill set, and it allows us to continue to build on all of the fundamental BA skills that we have. Now, the next one is business architecture, which is sometimes quite fashionable and you hear quite a lot about it and then it goes quiet. But I think there's a real opportunity here for business analysts to move into the business architecture space. Enterprise architecture is typically dominated by people that have come through a technical route. But I think that business architecture needs people like us, people with good business understanding and the ability to think more strategically, and those kind of business architects to move into enterprise architecture and not let it be dominated by people from a more technical background. So I think business architecture is a good route for business analysis, and not one that I'm seeing a lot of movement at the moment, but I think it's going to be around for a while, that one. Now this one's really exciting to me, business development. This is about organisational strategy, organisational design, and particularly BAs who are comfortable working at a more strategic level. I think this is a really good opportunity, and certainly something that I'm myself moving in, getting more experience in this area, rather than just delivery-focused business analysis. Now, I really don't like the idea of business analysts being promoted to that's not good, and I don't want to perpetuate that myth, but I do think that BA manager to program manager is something worth considering. I've seen that happen quite successfully, and I think the program manager skill set is quite different from the PM skill set, even though unfortunately it seems to be mostly PMs who move into the program manager space. So my advice is don't rule out program management because you think it's full of project managers. More and more I see business analysis sitting within a central change function, being involved in business process improvement, delivering good business change for our organisations. And I think this is a real opportunity for business analysts to use some of our skills, and I think this is going to be an area that continues to develop. And I've seen quite a few BA managers moving into a change management space, so I think this is definitely something that's going to continue. I think a lot of us would like to see more head of BA kind of roles, and over the last few years I think this has been increasing. This goes back to the point that I made earlier, that by convincing our organisations that business analysis is in need of leadership positions, I think we're going to see more and more of these head of BA roles, as organisations don't want to lose the talent that they've invested in for such a long time, and that they want to create a clear and coherent career path that goes all the way up to the top. So talking of the top, there is a role of my imagination, which is the Chief Analysis Officer. So this is an executive level BA role, which is all about strategy and doing things right and doing the right things. And you might think that's unattainable, but actually the CIO role has only been around for the last 30 years, and that is now really well embedded in many organisations. So I think Chief Analysis Officer is going to be a real option that's open to us, and I hope to see some of you in that role in the future. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Christy. That was really, really informative, really great. Has anyone got any questions for Christina?
My question about I love what you're doing with the apprentice stuff actually, and I wondered how it ties in with Sphere, because that's very popular, and I'm a big fan of that in terms of defining what we do.
Yeah.
So how do you see that tying in?
So
Sorry, I struggled to hear the question. okay.
So the question was, how does the Business Analysis Apprenticeship tie in with Sophia, the Skills for the Information Age that the BCS produce? So I should have mentioned that the BCS are the awarding body for the apprenticeship, so they've been very heavily involved. One of the problems with Sophia is that it's not well defined at the lower levels, so the competencies at the lower levels don't really exist for a lot of the BA type of competencies. But I'm hoping and I'm working with the BCS to think about some of those more entry-level roles and those more junior levels of competency. So the question is that it's not that well tied in yet, but it is the BCS that is responsible for both things, so I'm quite hopeful that it will in the future. Okay.
Just to, I don't know if this is quite private to be wicked here, but I get asked often, what's a business analyst doing? Particularly people coming new into the whole project environment or agile environment. So what's your kind of, if you're stuck in that 11-year-old child, whatever, say, what is a business analyst? How would you describe it? Because that's been a challenge for us.
Well, the kind of the phrase that I used just then, which is about doing the right things and doing those things right. That's how I explain business analysis without using any kind of IT jargon. I think I also don't like every single organisation trying to redefine what business analysis is, and I think that we've got professional bodies now in both the BCS and the IIBA that we can point to for good definitions of business analysis, and we shouldn't let our organisations force us into a route of trying to specify what does a business analyst look like at our organisation. We should say business analysis is a profession that exists, it has professional bodies, and we're going to use their definitions. Thank you very much.